Hello everybody, my name is Wexler. I've been playing Anji Mito since the game came out, and ever since Season 3, Anji Mito's been on definitely an upswing. They keep giving him really good tools. He's just been getting better and better, and I think especially in Strive 2.0, he's a character a lot of people are talking about, it's a character a lot of people are exploring, and a lot of people are having to play against for possibly the first time. They haven't had to deal with him much before this. And so the upshot of that is that as I'm playing Anji, I'm running into a lot of the same questions, and which is not a problem at all. This character's got kind of some gimmicks, but to just kind of make things easier for myself and to make a resource, we're going to go over sort of the level 1 counterplay, talk about how to deal with some of Anji's basic options. So we're going to talk about 3 things. We're going to talk about spin and what it does, how to deal with it. We're going to talk about Fujin and the new empowered follow-ups that come out of the held Fujin. And then we're also going to talk about parry. Because parry got a pretty important nerf this patch that I haven't seen that much discussion of, and I think it's actually much scarier for Anji to go for parry than it used to be. Okay, so we're going to start by talking about spin. And the other half of spin, which is that follow-up that knocks you down if you swing into it. Spin is a little bit technical. There's a few things going on under the hood. I think if you want all the details, I would just take a look at the dust loop. It's pretty well explained there. But the simplest way to think about what spin actually does is it makes you whiff an attack. So when spin goes off, I am locked into the recovery frames of my move, and Anji can either combo me, or just go for Madare to collect the knockdown and start his game plan. There are 3 things we'll touch on really quick with spin. The first and most obvious one is that spin can be thrown. Anji moves towards you, and without spinning meter, can't stop spinning for a pretty decent window of time, which makes throwing spin definitely the best counterplay to it. Now, if we can't do the best counterplay, let's say, we've swung into it, it'll happen sometimes, and Anji's about to parry us with Madare. If we have meter, we also have a really good way to turn that situation around, which is what you saw there, is to PRC backdash around the fish. PRCing the spin in general is good, because even if I block it, I'm actually +2. And that's a pretty big change they made to Anji this season, which is that even if you block Madare, it's actually your turn now. So keep an eye on your meter, and just remember that if you swing into this, you have meter, you actually have a couple of good options. And then the last thing I want to talk about with spin is the counter hit state on the recovery and the startup. So there I hit the startup frames of spin, and that's a counter hit. And after the move completes, the recovery animation can also be counter hit. So the risk for Anji going for spin is higher, I think, than people give it credit for. And if you want to play against this character well, you should really be taking advantage of that. That's the basics for spin. You should throw it. You can PRC backdash to get out of it if it triggers. And keep in mind that it's counter hits on start of the recovery. Fujin is this thing. We've all seen it. Oh. Spoiler. We'll get to that. So, Fujin has 4 follow-ups, and you can also just kind of let it rock and leave it empty. That doesn't come up that often. There is Nagiha, which is the slow swipe. Nagiha is usually the option Anji will just kind of go into if they're looking for something that's reasonably safe. You can see it's -7, so that means that it is punishable. But at a lot of spacings, Anji's going to be a little bit minus, but let's stay safe. The thing to know about Nagiha, first of all, this is gapless. And the other thing to know about it is that... Oops, I don't want to show the empowered one quite yet. If Anji's right next to you, so if he's a little careless about spacing, you get a light punch. So, in Anji's case, I'm going to do 2k 2D butterfly. Do whatever your character's best light punish is, that you can get in less than 7 frames. Some characters, that's going to be like 2p, 2p, 6p. You get the idea. So that's the basics of what to know about Nagiha. The next follow-up is Fan Needles. This is the pressure reset option out of Fugen. So after those needles connect, Anji is +7. This creates a lot of natural frame traps. So if I just swing my far slash afterwards, that's an 11 frame button. That creates a 4-frame frame trap without me having to do any work. There's also, I can do 2S if you try to catch you backdashing out of it. That's a 10-frame startup, so 3-frame gap. Excuse me, I can do that. Yeah, there it is. There it is. So, if the needles connect, you kind of have to hold whatever Anji's doing next. If you've got a DP, it's an okay spot to fish for a DP, but if you don't have a DP, then for the most part, you're kind of stuck holding whatever Anji's going to try to do next to you in terms of the mix-up. Now to avoid that, you should attack the startup with this move. And this is something I think people miss pretty frequently dealing with Anji, but let me show you kind of what that looks like. So, to some extent, you sort of have to be expecting it. But even on reaction, it's pretty feasible to at least get away from it. So, punishing it is a bit of a call-out. You can definitely do it. You can also punish with air throw. That's really good if you're in the corner. And I'm just trying to do this, but you have to hold up forward a little bit. You can throw him back into the corner. Now, for reasons we'll talk about later, it's often pretty good to be jumping after these follow-ups anyway. So that's just something to be keeping an eye out for. You can get a little greedy and try to take your turn back, but, you know, mid-screen you can backdash away. If you're in the corner, you can usually get over his head, that kind of thing. So, the important thing is that, as much as it maybe feels pretty safe to just be eating Fugen fan needles all the time, something that's a little bit subtle about Anji's pressure is that it uses a lot of special moves. And so that means that Anji builds a little bit more meter than other characters when he's making just block his stuff. And he's chipping you out more than other characters. Not as much as some of the real, chip damage dispensers, but it's significant. So you really don't want to be just blocking this all the time. You want to be making sure Anji has to be missing this and his other options, and the best way to make him think about doing something else with it is to punish it, or to get away from him. Okay, that's Fan Needle. Next is the Hop. In my opinion, the Hop is the weakest of the follow-ups. It's 26 frames total, and you can see that Anji is effectively made you +10 and parked himself next to you. So you actually have pretty good options for punishing him out of this. Why did that not record? You can get a nice back throw, and if you're fast enough, yeah, you can see I got a punish there, so Anji can't avoid that. And if you immediately press close slash, you can hit it on the way in with a mash, or if you're really confident, you can block him with your close slash and get a good combo. So that's Hop. There's some silly stuff you can do out of Hop, you can do these kinds of overhead setups, but for the most part, I think it's kind of a underwhelming follow-up. You just have to get used to reacting to it, and you can make Anji really scared of doing it. And then the last follow-up is Rin, which is the overhead. Important to note, on this patch, they made this a lot less rewarding unless it's charged. So even you have to be in the corner to get close slash afterwards. You have to be like point blank in the corner. You don't get this mid sprint anymore. And for a few seasons now, it's been the case that if you hit them with the uncharged Rin, you don't get a follow-up. Even if you spend meter, they're already in that sort of soft knockdown tech state, and so they're invulnerable. And so the upshot of that is that getting clocked with Rin every now and then is actually not that big a deal. It's a little bit like taking a throw. Sometimes this is just going to happen to you, and you don't want to get hit by the other stuff because you're panicked about getting clocked by Rin a couple times. Which is kind of the way it is. So, Nagiha and Rin have an important property, which is that Nagiha comes out a little bit faster than Rin does. Rin comes out in 18 frames, Nagiha comes out in 15. So this leads to the primary sort of level 1 counterplay that you should know for dealing with Anji, which is fuzzy guarding. if Anji is just kind of doing the follow-ups at you, we'll say he's really just dialing these and doing them all as fast as possible. He's just kind of hitting buttons. You can block Doggy Hill low, then block Green high, and you will respond to all of the follow-ups. You will block Fan Needles, which is not great, but you didn't get hit. You have so much time to deal with Pop coming at you that you should always be throwing or punishing it. And then obviously you're going to block the other two follow-ups. And then there's kind of a layer 1.5 to that, which is how good jumping after Fujin actually can be. So, if I have Anji... I already talked about how if you jump at Needles, you can punish it. But you can actually punish, or at least get something decent, against all the follow-ups. I left that recording right for too long, I think. So you can see there I jump out. And then a lot of the times, if Anji goes green, you're careful about your timing that you block at, you can't block the green as well. And if you block green, you get a punish. So that level 1 fuzzy blocking is really important. I recommend practicing it some, and then adding in the fuzzy jumping to punish Needles to get away from Hop, etc. And it might sound like a lot of work, but I promise you it really isn't. And once you get it down, Anji players are going to be very, very scared of you. I can tell you there's a huge difference as an Anji player. I can tell almost right away if a player knows how to fuzzy guard Fujin, and I am much more scared of them if they can fuzzy block it, because I have to be so much more thoughtful about what I'm doing on offense, and I have to take more risks. So, very, very good to learn. Let's talk about Empowered Fujin now. This was in the game last patch, but it did something else. Now, Empowered Fujin gives you these empowered follow-ups that are all a little bit better in different ways. But before we get into the follow-ups, I really want to talk about dealing with Empowered Fujin, because this thing is slow. This is 32 frames before it's active. It does have some guard points on the beginning where Anji's in his auto guard animation, so if you try to mash on it, then sometimes you'll get punished by that. But it has one really important weakness, which is that even in strings, a lot of the time if Anji goes for this, he's setting himself up to be thrown. And so that looks like this. Why are we only doing the buttons sometimes? If he does like button into Empowered Fujin, you can back throw him. Or forward throw him. You can throw him. So, obviously this is pretty important because the Empowered Fujin follow-ups are much better. They give Anji a lot more advantage to work with. So you really don't want to just be blocking Empowered Fujin. And I kind of feel like a lot of the time you really shouldn't have to, except for Wake Up. Anji can make you block the charge Fujin on Wake Up, but in a lot of situations, if you're paying attention, you can prevent him from resetting this on you in block strings. So, be aware of that first, and I will talk about the empowered follow-ups. Empowered Nagiha is safe at -3. So, and that's actually the only difference. It's -3, but it has the same combo properties on hit, it has the same startup. It's just that Anji is totally safe, even if he's right next to you. That you cannot punish him, but you do have that 3 extra frames to take your turn. Empowered Fan Needles is clickbait. He is +14, which means that you are definitely stuck pulling whatever he does next. And he's got a couple new frame trap options out of us that he didn't have before. I think the big one is he can immediately press 5H to get a 1-frame frame trap. And 5H on counter hit is Anji's best starter. Certainly one of the best starters. So this is a situation that's really good for him. So do not press if you end up blocking Fan Needles, the Empowered Fan Needles. You do have to hold whatever Anji's doing next, and it's your fault because you should have punished him on the way up. The startup frames on Needles are exactly the same for the Empowered version, and in fact this applies to all of the Fujin follow-ups. That fuzzy blocking and jumping that I was talking about before does still handle all 4 follow-ups even when they're empowered. Okay, quick editing jump scare. I forgot to mention how Empowered Green differs. We talked about regular Reen, how it's at never any reward when it hits you, even if Anji spends meter. Once it's empowered, Anji can get reward out of it, but he does have to spend meter for it. And that's the difference. Startup is still the same, recovery is still the same. If you block this, you can punish it. And you should probably expect Anji to try to throw this in a little bit more after the empowered ones, because obviously with the meter, the reward is a lot better. Alright, that's that. The last one is Empowered Fujin Hop. This is 5 frames faster, and has a little bit of a tighter gap because of the higher attack level on Charge Fujin. 21 frames is a lot tighter to react to. And I actually think Hop probably gets the most improved award for being held. You can't be hit out of it nearly as easily. You get much easier access to your close slash this way. It's better in his combos. And it's just generally harder to react to. So you'll see a lot more throw clashes on this. It's generally something you have to respect a lot more. So that's the Empowered Fujin follow-ups. They're much better. The biggest thing is just keep on from getting access to them easily by making sure that he isn't just doing this to you in strains all the time. Okay. Talk about parry now real quick. So that's the parry. It's pretty infamous. Does a pretty good chunk of damage. It's active frame 1 through frame 28, and it will catch any strike, and you'll get the People's Elbow. Now, they did nerf a lot of reversal supers this patch, and Anji's parry is actually also received some nerfs. They don't get talked about much, but I think they do actually make the move a lot easier to deal with. So, it used to be a 30 frames active parry with a 10 frame recovery. It's now active for 28 frames and recovers for 18. So they nearly doubled the window that you have to punish this move with a strike. And first of all, you can just throw it. So if you're ever not sure about getting the timing to punish it by getting a counter hit, throwing it is always safe. So if you're in like a clutch situation, then just do that. But if you really feel like you know what you're doing, then it's much more feasible to punish this move now than it used to be. And the visual cue I'm telling people to look for is the moment Anji starts putting the fan down. As soon as he kind of moves his elbow out of the way, that's your chance to get in there for the punish. And I've even got this bot set up to parry occasionally. Come on, show me. Okay, maybe I don't. You can see this is pretty reactable. My age starts with a 3. If I can react to this, you can react to this. So, that makes a big difference. It means that it's a lot more rewarding to be kind of fishing for Anji to do this parry. And it makes it so that he has to think harder about it. Which kind of, I guess I'll say if there's an overarching theme to this video, it's that you really want to break Anji out of his level 1 game plan. Because his level 1 game plan is now very good. You don't want him to be just dialing stuff on you all the time. I don't really know why I showed that. You don't want him to just be dialing his Fujin follow-ups, you don't want him to just be spinning on you and spinning through your buttons, knocking you down all the time, and you don't want to be getting parried every time you try to run pressure on him with 50 meter. So, give him something to think about. I think if I had to say to prioritize something, the 2 things I prioritize working on in the lab are punishing Midare, which is this one. So either PRCing and blocking it to take your turn back, or what you're really looking for is to get these nice punishes. And then the other thing to work on is fuzzy blocking after Fujin, so that you can answer the follow-ups as best you can. That one does take some practice, but I promise you having something that you can just kind of dial to respond to Anji's level 1 pressure so that he has to think and do things, it's just going to make your life a lot easier when you're dealing with this character. Alright, so that's the level 1 counterplay to Anji. I think the existence of these kinds of counterplay things is going to keep Anji out of the discussion for like the top characters in the game. He's definitely still very strong, but I think he's actually going to struggle some at the top level. It has to do with how effective a lot of this level 1 counterplay actually is. So, if you complain about Anji, I will be linking this video. If anyone else complains about Anji, please link them in this video, and we can force the Anji Nation to use their brains a little bit more. I promise you they'll hate it.